वन्दे मातरम्।
Indian Air Force completes 89 glorious years in the service of the country on 8th of October 2021. On this occasion, let's light through the evolution of the nation under the precious guidance of its brave soldiers in the sky. Guided by the principle of courage, discipline, excellence and honor, Indian Air Force protects the nation during war and crisis. Today, it is the fourth largest airport in the world. The beginning of this brave force was quite modest. Indian Air Force was officially established in 1932 as an auxiliary force of British Empire. World War II presented a great opportunity to show the value of the force. And indeed, the valiant officer proved so valuably to the whole operation that the British government restored the Indian Air Force with the prefix Royal, which at that time was an immense honor. Number 1 Squadron of the Indian Air Force, the Tiger, known for its precious strike electronic warfare. Today was the key player. Even back in the day, the Tiger were only who landed in Burma. Those land Lyser aircraft and bombarded Japanese bases. Air bases under the command of Royal Air Force. Air Force officers with 22 flying crosses pinned to their chest.
He had the habit when he visited an Air Force unit, he just straightly climbed up of the aircraft, stand on the wing of the aircraft, give a speech. And after that, he visited one school. That was in fall. He called me in the dispersal area, gave a speech, and then he called me over there. The Queen has agreed to carry this, distinguished flying class to you. Which is only given from a father bravery in accurate fighting. Throughout the period of 1 year, 9 DFCs, pretty much. Now that's a record anywhere during the Royal Air Force.
Though the nation was not independent, but the Indian forces were already making their mark on the global platform. Indian independence, partition of India and Jammu Kashmir dispute are well-known aspects of our history. Indian Air Force better remarks role in all of them. 1947 was another critical year for India and its forces. Excitement of independence and the thriller of coming out the shadows of Royal Air Force were empowering soldiers, but this excitement was soon damaged by every war in Jammu Kashmir. In the nation favoring peace was frequently disturbed by the war, namely War of 1971, Bangladesh Liberation War and Kargil in 1999. However, attacking on the enemy, the Indian Air Force bring the situation in control.
In that war, basically in bombing operations, both in the eastern sector and the western sector. I think in the history of Indian strategic thought and action, 1971 war can be really the golden chapter because it's the first time ever in India's history that military force, particularly air power, was used to such telling effect that militarily India was able to create another country. The interesting part was by 71 India had modernized reasonably well. Pakistan was in a relatively weaker wicket, although its air force was as good as it was in 65. But the problem was because Pakistani technicians were primarily Bengalis and they were not quite loyal to the cause that Pakistani believed in.
1971 war, in the beginning of the year, that is 1971, a new unit got created. It was called at that time the Tactics and Combat Development Establishment. The object was that here were a group of relatively experienced pilots who would train themselves and then train the others on the subject of tactics and air combat. But as you know, around March, the problem in Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, had started. So we started our training, and soon we used to be told that all right, we were operating from Ambala at that time, that okay, from Ambala you go and attack Hindon, which is near Delhi, or you go and attack Halwara, which is near Ludhiana. So we suddenly found that we were doing this reasonably well. That a rather difficult task, where they just wanted us to lob the bombs in the general area, we found that we could do it with some accuracy. They couldn't believe that over here with training, you could carry out in those prehistoric aircraft low-level flying and hit targets by night.
Operation Safed Saga was a code name assigned to the Indian Air Force, who rose in acting jointly with Indian Army during 1999 Kargil War, that was aimed at flushing regular and irregular troops from vaccinating Indian Pakistani in Kargil sector along with the line of control.
Kargil War, I was in charge of the air actions, air operations, but I didn't participate myself. Our entire planning had to be shifted when, at the last minute, when I was told, go, you can now go ahead and attack. He also said, stay on your own side of the LC. That made matters a little difficult for me, because that entire planning was made. You see, an air force is an offensive arm, and if we had to win the air war, we had to go across the border and take action. But staying on our own side of the border really tied our hands. It was not so easy. We lost one or two aircraft. We changed our planning systems and we changed our pattern of flying. And we were always on the search to look for some juicy target on our side of the airfield that we could attack successfully. Then we found one in Muntodhalo is the name of the place, where there was a relatively large ammunition depot, logistics depot, admin depot. And well, we flunked it in one mission of 4 Mirage aircraft. And that was the absolute turning point, because their administrative machinery got curtailed, their supplies got curtailed, and all the people concerned, they were wondering as to how they can carry on. And we continue to attack these lines of communication is what we say. Basically, it's not lines of communication, it's lines of communication for supplies. And if you could hit those lines of communication, you are hindering and interdicting the passage of supplies to the forward troops. And if you do that, you are winning. And that's what happened.
In 2013, the flood in Kedarnath, Indian Air Force has launched Operation Rahat. During the flood, IAF's one helicopter was crashed, but still they were keep on going and saved thousands of people's lives. In 2021, Operation Oxygen was launched by Air Force due to the lack of oxygen and ventilators during the second wave in our country. Air Force has taken command and going to abroad to take oxygen concentrator and supply in whole India.
सुफलां मलयज शीतलां शस्य श्यामलां मातरं वन्दे मातरम्। झर झर नदियां सर सर चलती पवन शुभ तेरे मौसम वन्दे सुफलां मलयज शीतलां शस्य श्यामलां मातरं वन्दे मातरम्। झर झर नदियां सर सर चलती पवन शुभ तेरे मौसम वन्दे